thanks for, let's say, our shareholders, our Unite shows that they really, let's say, found that common conviction to move into this, let's say, European ambition. We already had a European ambition as iDEAL because we were on stage here last year and the year before stating that European ambition. The fact that this is also a way to achieve our ambition is for us really, really good. But that said, iDEAL is very important for the Dutch community, so we have to be very strict in the conditions, and I think that's why we had a very nice negotiation period to set out the right conditions on which basis iDEAL could indeed, in controlled phases, move towards that centralized European EPI solution. And we will be, of course, very supportive, but on the other hand also very well securing that position we as iDEAL have. So as an example, all the current use cases iDEAL serves in this market will be one-on-one base or integrated in the EPI solution going forward. The only thing is, and I think that's a real important message, is that the EPI solution can only succeed when it is stronger than the current iDEAL, and I think we are confident that we can manage that and we can bring that to the respective markets. And indeed, the proof of the eating is in the pudding or something. It will take indeed a number of really well defined decisions going forward to ensure that we as a Dutch community will fully and completely step into the EPI ambitions, let's call it, but I would say more than an ambition, because that's clear why we're here for, because EPI is becoming a reality now, and now it's really the delivery which is very important to focus on.
Yeah, I think the words you chose are very prudential, so I guess there was also some regulators involved in the process.
Oh, not at all.
Could you let's say something about that? What's their stance on this?
No, in essence, and we always have to be a little bit careful because we can't speak on behalf of the regulator, but what we've learned so far in the process, that they are overall supporting the strategy to really come up with a European solution which can work out for all respective markets. So not only the Dutch regulator, but I think other regulators as well. And at the same time, they're also very strict, and rightfully strict, in saying, guys, you are managing a critical infrastructure where a lot of the ecosystem is depending upon, so you can't actually take any risk. So, and that's always that balance we have to manage together.
Yeah, no, and rightly so, because indeed it is quite critical infrastructure that we're talking about here, so that's understandable. I mean, how was that going? How were your conversations basically on the central level with the regulators on this, and are they just as supportive?
Yeah, they love the idea of independent, sovereign European solution with only European shareholders. That's, I think, quite specific, because yeah, we had requests from international players, but there is a policy about this, the European Payment Strategy, who advocates for an independent solution. So yeah, we wanted to cater for this, and we set up everything in this sense. But I must say, I think it's also a challenge for the regulators now to align, to organize amongst them, to find the right equilibrium between national central banks, the European Central Bank, the Commission, on the one side the competition authorities, on the other side DG FISMA. So I think it's really new for the whole market, and for us as an ecosystem that we want to build. That's very important that we succeed in aligning this, but I think we have come very well ahead now with this, and everybody is clear about what are the next steps and how this should work over time also.
Yep. But I think it's the regulators have a lot on their hands already. You also mentioned, for example, the digital euro, which I think is also interesting. How do you see this project align with those initiatives?
Yeah, that's always the $100 question. So, what are you going to do with the digital euro? Are you competing? I would say it depends. It depends on the final design of the digital euro. We are very open to the cooperation. What I mean is, as I've said before, we have already foreseen and catered for that this is possible to integrate the digital euro, simply because it would be crazy if in the future we ask again the consumer to adopt an additional app. How many apps do we want the consumer to have? So we wanted to make sure that on the one side the digital euro can be integrated, but also services around payments and digital identity to make it smooth and workable for the clients and for the merchants. So there are of course aspects of competition, but there are also many aspects of cooperation. I think ultimately the only thing that counts is the user value. So what do we bring to the consumer? And there I think the important aspect is control and choice. The consumer will have the choice, do I just integrate my bank account or will I also integrate my digital euro account? It's a nice way how to create value for the European consumer by integrating all this into one interface. So we are closely following it. We are trying to work with the ECB on it. We were participating in the prototype of the ECB, delivering merchant integration and the full-fledged functioning for the point of sale use case, just to show that how it can work, what it would look like, and that it works actually quite well. And we are looking forward to continue working with them, always with the perspective that, well, we don't want to cannibalize on the other side EPI. We want to give this choice to the consumer.
Quite a challenging environment, I think, but it's nice to see how you can make those things align. I think that's also interesting to perspective. I think you probably also talked a lot about sort of the different use cases that there are for the future if you talk about this kind of collaboration. Are there any things that you're excited about, what you sort of see on the horizon? You mentioned something about digital identity, or digital euro, we talked about it a bit already. Anything that you're particularly looking out for, Daniel, that's sort of coming within reach now from the perspective of a more Dutch-oriented scheme towards a, let's say, pan-European ambition?
What I always stated, so we strongly believe that iDEAL will become stronger in a different form and probably maybe with an even different name, because we do not know if iDEAL, although so strong here in the Netherlands, will be such a strong brand in other markets going forward. So that's open. But from a value and service perspective, and we actually were just onboarding on that journey to use data in the right way and actually to actually use data in a beneficial way for the consumer. As an example, or coming up with the right recurring payment solutions to really being able to face competition going forward. I believe that that's one of the key elements we can bring even stronger and faster to the market if we are actually a united scheme going forward. And hopefully it will be the start of the journey. And yes, of course, the digital euro is important, but at the same time also a factor to manage, because in the end you can only build the right value-added services on your scheme if your scheme is also still the preferred scheme. So it should not cannibalize. I totally agree. At the same time, I think it's also strong that we in the end will be able to combine these payment means in one wallet. And I think the last word has not been said on which wallet in the end it will be and how it will really work out in the different markets, but at least the payment functionality and the payment scheme offered should be absolutely standardized. Otherwise, we will never reach that scale which we need to compete.
Yeah. On that note as well, I think this also requires quite a solid partnership strategy going forward. I mean, you already rely on a very big set of solid shareholders. What else is coming up there? What kind of partnership strategy do you have to actually get more buy-in and basically get more markets attached?
Yeah, I mean, these talks now were initiated. What I mean is, we speak a lot with merchants, with big platforms, with other acquirers, very important, and of course also with other banking institutions from other markets, because yeah, this should grow. But in terms of launch, what I think is now the most important aspect to accompany the launch moment is to find partners that will integrate EPI for the e-commerce part, for example, so big platforms, big merchants, but also making sure that this is easy to go for smaller ones. These conversations are now starting, and it's very good because you get direct market feedback on what you have foreseen, on the architecture, on the services. And we did this a lot in the past in terms of what do you want to have, and we integrated it in the value proposition. But now it's really in the perspective of launching it in the market.
Okay. And what kind of timeline should we think about if we talk about launch?
Yeah, so at the end of the year we will do the test transactions. We will start with P2P, and we will then have the commercial launch in Q1 2024, followed with P2 Pro, so professional payment, the plumber, the yoga teacher, whatever. I think that's an interesting spot. And then towards the end of 2024, e-commerce will follow. E-commerce and m-commerce. I would like to insist on this, because m-commerce means for us that you can scan a QR code in the street or whatever environment and finalize the transaction in your app without a merchant in front of you, without a terminal. I think that's a whole new way or area that is still pretty untapped in Europe. And then we will move on in 2025 into the POS environment. So stage-by-stage approach, as Daniel also outlined. There are many steps to be taken, but I think now we have the setup to come to a successful launch.
Great. Sounds already pretty quick in my view, but what do you think about that, Daniel? So what does that mean for all the perhaps Dutch users that might be here in the audience? What can they expect perhaps on their transactions to see?
I think that was already clear, as you guys said, at the stages, and if you actually listen to the stages whereby the EPI solution will be built, all these specific elements we currently already have in iDEAL. So that already gives some indication of the timelines when we will actually start migrating. So that will only be when the full-fledged solution on the EPI side is ready, because otherwise we would of course leave an important segment or important partners in the Dutch ecosystem behind without a proper solution. So we can and will only do that once we have a proper solution in place. And to be honest, I actually want to thank the audience for an initial positive response, because from an iDEAL perspective we see now with the EP announcement that there's even more traction and more interest in joining the iDEAL scheme. So all come to us first and then we bring it to EPI.
Nice commercial call out there, Daniel. Well done. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what is sort of the next hurdles on the roadmap. Let's say you've probably got a couple of big things to tackle before this roadmap will actually make its timelines. So what's on your agenda for the coming period?
Yeah, I mean we have to build, so meaning centrally, but also the integration with the banks and then with the acquirers, acceptance providers. That's of course a challenge, because you need to bring together this whole ecosystem with people having very different starting points in the various markets. So that will keep us super busy for a very long time. In parallel, we need to make sure that the whole integration with the teams of iDEAL, but also with the teams of Payconic International happens. The good thing is, I mean, through the due diligence process, we already got to know each other, I would say, quite well. And yeah, now we are really operationally working together, which is very good, because as you can imagine, it's a a good basis of expertise coming together.
Yeah.
But that will keep us very busy for many months.
No, exactly. I can imagine you have some teams to integrate and knowledge to exchange and get everything going. How about you, Daniel? What's sort of next outside your holiday plans for the summer?
I think one thing to remind is, of course, that we have to manage the iDEAL scheme separately, and so yes, we do try to find all kinds of ways to provide EPI with a kickstart, and also with the knowledge and expertise of our team and the team of Payconic. At the same time, we have to also adhere to the regulator in what we can and can't do. Just that said, but for us, I think really a bright future, but indeed depending on the whole ecosystem to onboard with us, and also our responsibility to make that onboarding as seamlessly as possible. And for that reason, we really need to focus first on indeed that build and that delivery, that stack which will be there and will have to deliver a seamless and well and let's say highly functioning payment system that should be there before indeed we as iDEAL take, let's say, that, or let's say,
big lever will
take the journey. So that, I think, will be the challenge. So overall, very bright and very positive, but it's never easy in a two-sided market.
No, exactly. It's quite a transition period that you're now going into together. Yeah. We're out of time, but I'd really like to thank you for this conversation. And I guess some people might actually want to talk to you afterwards, so probably should try and look you up. What would be the best way to get in touch with you, Martina?
I'm still here today, so whenever you want. Otherwise, via the EPI website, it's easy to contact us.
You, Daniel?
Same for me. And I think probably a part of the audience already knows me, so I have my mobile phone number.
Great. I'd like to thank you very much. Thank you all for listening in on EPI. Please reach out indeed to either Martina or Daniel. Thank you both very much for sharing your insights here, and looking forward to the next payment scheme.
Thank you.